Again, another reason why they hate us lawyers. That's why I got out of the law. What do
Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2024 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December of 2023, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Croy.
Here.
Daffis.
Present.
Luca.
Here.
Ms. Engel.
Here.
Mayor Adams.
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting. And whereas the desire of the governing body to comply with the provision in this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner. Now therefore be resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood, does hereby prohibit except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Croy.
Yes.
Mr. Daffis.
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
Engel.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Put it back in the right place.
We all asked.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, December 17th, 2024, our last meeting of the year, meeting of the Maplewood Township Committee. We are just going through, have one proclamation tonight, and it's an appreciation for Mr. and Mrs. Nelson, who are closing Nelson's Automotive on Donnell Road for after 51 years in business. Then we have a presentation by Deborah Lyons, the chair of the Maplewood Memorial Park Conservancy. I asked Ms. Lyons to come and present because just really proud of everything the Conservancy is doing. And I think it's worth telling the public a little more about it. Then we have no appointments to boards and committee. We have public comment for agenda items only. We have one ordinance on the stormwater utility that we've discussed for a very long time on for final passage, and we'll have that hearing. We have administrative reports of Township Administrator, Attorney, and Clerk. Then we have elected official reports, Committee Member Daffis, Committee Member DeLuca, Committee Member Engel, Deputy Mayor Kripe, and then I go last. Discussion items, we have one for this evening, Raymond Terrace parking restrictions, and that'll be Mr. DeLuca discussing that. Then we have a consent agenda. We'll have one more public comment on any subject matter, and then we will adjourn for the holiday. So with that, I spoke with Mr. Nelson of Nelson's Automotive the other day and asked if he and his wife were not able to be here this evening, but we had a very lovely conversation, and I just wanted to recognize them. So we are going to be delivering this proclamation to them after the meeting, and I've asked Deputy Mayor Kripe to read it for us.
Thank you, Mayor. This proclamation is an appreciation for Dave Nelson and Nelson's Automotive Incorporated. Whereas Dave Nelson, the owner of Nelson's Automotive Incorporated, has proudly and successfully operated his business in the heart of Maplewood for the past 51 years, continually providing exceptional service to the community. And whereas under Dave's leadership, Nelson's Automotive Incorporated has consistently grown and flourished, standing as a true testament to his unwavering commitment to integrity, trust, and confidence. And whereas Dave built his business on the simple but powerful principle of treating customers with the same respect, kindness, and fairness that he would want to receive, ensuring that every visit to Nelson's Automotive was met with care and honesty. And whereas thanks to his principles, Nelson's Automotive has not only found loyalty and support, but has crafted friendships that have gone beyond patronage and have made it so Dave's business, his employees, and himself have become part of the fabric of Maplewood's community. And whereas after decades of hard work, Dave has decided it is time to step back, enjoy the fruits of his labor, and spend more time with his beloved grandchildren, family, and friends as he approaches his 80th year. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on behalf of Mayor Nancy Adams of the Township of Maplewood and the rest of the Maplewood Township Committee, we hereby congratulate Dave Nelson for his 50-plus years of excellence in business and service to our community. And we offer our heartfelt thanks for his dedication, his passion, and his legacy that he's created. Thank you, Mayor.
And I would just add that his wife Ginny and he have
Awesome.
both been very proud to have done this work. And as he said to me, he's just, I'm getting too old to be doing some of the positions necessary to really fix cars and do that. So yeah. Okay. We're going to move to presentation. On that note, Deborah, would you like to come up to the microphone?
The slides?
He's probably pulling it up now.
Thanks for having me tonight. As you know, but for the folks at home, the Maplewood Memorial Park Conservancy is a nonprofit volunteer organization that partners with the township to preserve, maintain, and improve our beautiful and historic park. So we've been around since 2017, and last year, Mayor Adams was graciously declared 2024 the year of the Conservancy. And we've had an awesome year. So I'm very happy to come here and give you a very brief update about it.
Yeah. So this is appropriate.
Yes.
So after the Township
Whole-
Committee
yeah.
made this your year, you can close the year with, let's see what you've done.
Sprinkled that fairy dust around
That's
in
right,
here.
that's right.
So since 2017, we've done major planting in almost all areas of the park, as you can see. Many of these projects, they were all designed by our landscape consultant, Jennifer Ryan, and based on historic precedent, all approved by the Historic Preservation Commission and the State Historic Preservation Office. So these were multi-year efforts by volunteers, basically. Next slide. So this year we were awarded a 2024 AARP Community Challenge Grant for a project we've been dreaming of and planning for several years. And that's to complete the interior pathway loop through the park as was originally intended. And also to create a beautifully landscaped entryway at Oakview and Valley. So in this effort, we've had the invaluable help and guidance of the Township Engineering Department at every step, planning, permitting, for years. And this project was possible only because the Department of Public Works stepped up to install the pathway. So we're so grateful to Paul Kittner, Director of Engineering and Public Works, the engineering staff, and Supervisor Mike Horan and the wonderful crew at the DPW for this path and for helping us with tree planting, watering, and whatever else was needed so graciously. So the path allows park goers to traverse the park while avoiding the very busy and narrow Valley Street sidewalk, and also makes the playgrounds and ball fields accessible to everyone. This project was very difficult because of unannounced construction by the county and because of historic drought. But it's been just so gratifying because we've received so much positive feedback about it. And so this is phase one, and we'll be taking a little break and looking at how the plants survive. And then we're hoping to finish with a border landscaping on Valley Street. So next slide. So our previous big project was the Flagpole Hill project, and that was funded by the Maplewood Open Space Trust Fund and was phased in over 4 years. It was done by a combination of a contractor, Birch Hill Landscaping, and also volunteer efforts. And you can see our capstone is the site marker on our boulder, and that gives the park's name and date, and the designers, which are the Olmsted Brothers and Brindley and Holbrook. Next. So in between, we've done a lot of other planting projects. Woo, this got wonky. Sorry. So these are our tree projects, and they were planted with Conservancy volunteers and the DPW. And I'm sorry, this came out, it's very hard to see, but maybe I can just tell you these tree projects are all guided by our tree replacement master plan. So first are those planted by volunteers, and then unfortunately you can't see those that are planted by contractors as well. Maybe you, Patrick, I don't know if you can scroll down a little.
Yeah, it looks like you got like an extra tab in there. He's fixing it.
Yeah. Hey, so anyway, you can see the that's for roughly $20,000 for 126 planted trees. And then the contractor, these are Township OSTF funds. And those were in 2023 and 2021, and that was a total of $32,000. So you can see the contractor planting is more expensive, but of course it does have its benefits because you get guarantees for trees that have done. Still, it's pretty good total. So next.
I think he just did all the work.
What's that?
He just finished it.
And you're like,
Oh. Oh, no.
Thanks for the comedy relief here.
Oh. Anyway, this is our, this slide shows you what shrubs and perennials we've planted. And these are all planted by volunteers. Those volunteers include our Weeding Wednesday volunteers and our partners at the Parkview Neighborhood Association. So this year, as you can see, we planted about 200 shrubs, and that includes the Valley Street project. And we struggled this year with keeping our plants watered because of the drought. So next year, we're developing strategies to get more access to water, and we're also investigating soil amendments.
I just want to emphasize this small group of volunteers planted 200 shrubs.
Yeah.
I just want you to think about your yard and how much energy it is to, and how much work it is to plant like one. And I know Deb has like sloughed like water from her house down to water.
I was out planting today.
Yeah.
Thought, oh, it's warm.
But I think it gets lost in the presentation a little bit, that the magnitude of the work of the small group of people who dedicate themselves to this, so.
And I didn't total this, but this comes out to about $12,000. So,
Right.
and it's pretty good for that many
Mhm.
shrubs. So finally, here are the totals since we started, and that's 225 trees planted, almost 1,000 shrubs. And that's kind of not all we do. We do maintenance. We hold Weeding Wednesdays every week, and trash cleanup, that's led by Susan Rogers, once a month. We also do community events, history walk, birding. We brought the Raptor Trust in this year, and we do workshops for the public. So I also just wanted to say in closing that these few slides are based on like an enormous and comprehensive data files. And they've been compiled by Jennifer Ryan. And we have spreadsheets, we have shape files with geolocation, date of planting, species, condition, cost, everything. And you actually, we do upload that data, some of it, to a tree and shrub map, and that's available on our website, or you can download it on your phone and walk around the park and
Yeah.
find trees. So I know some of you know Jennifer has moved, but we now have Karen Rutberg on board, and she's not only a great gardener, but she's also conversant in GIS and other systems. So Jennifer is helping us transition that work to me and Karen. And we're exploring additional data systems, like something like Tree Plotter. So 1,000 thanks to Jennifer, who's been invaluable to our efforts. And I want to thank the township for your help and support this year. In addition to those I mentioned before, the DPW and engineering. I'd also like to thank Pat Wary, Liz Fritzen, Melissa Mancuso, and Candace Davenport. And of course, all of you, especially our fabulous township liaison, Mayor Adams. And Deputy Mayor Kripe, I just want to thank you for your service. So, any
Thank
questions?
you so much. Does anyone have any questions or comments they'd like to make to the fabulous Conservancy Chair, Deborah Lyons, on her presentation?
Just great job on everything you do. Thank you.
Have you all walked the path?
Yes.
Yes.
I've stopped with littles who've read the little signs and everything. They enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and we already mentioned the water source thing to engineering. We're hoping it'll get to DPW's budget this year, but we'll look at how they can connect. We are looking at the water fountains as to be a place where it might be an easy connection to. So they can use it. So Deb doesn't have to bring, what do you bring them?
Yeah,
I
bringing
know.
buckets from home.
Yeah. To preserve Deborah's marriage and life.
And
we
her
would
back.
like that.
And her back.
And her back. Thank you so much. Thanks so much. It's been quite a fulfilling 7 years, and Deborah has led the organization really, really amazingly, and pitching in areas she had no intention of ever doing, I'm sure. But so just thanks to the whole board of the Conservancy. I'd ask that you send the presentation to Village Green so that, and talk a little bit in what you send to Mary, the how to donate to the Conservancy, but also maybe if they're interested in joining the organization, the board. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Now we're open for public comment on agenda items only. So we ask anyone in the room who'd like to speak to come up to the podium and give your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. No, you're up first.
And this is not for the stormwater.
This-
That's an ordinance.
That's an ordinance. That'd be the
So it's
hearing.
not
Right.
stormwater, because that comes under the ordinance.
Danielle, you're going to do that? Is that what you're, it's coming up like next. It's literally next.
Yeah.
So you'll have.
Close.
All right. Anyone online want to speak to agenda items, Mr. Worry?
Any members on Zoom would like to speak on agenda items only, please raise your hand. I see no hands, Mayor.
Okay, great. Then we'll move to ordinances on final passage. Ms. Fritzen.
Yes, Mayor. Item number 9, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 3138-24 is an ordinance to establish a stormwater utility in the Township of Maplewood in the County of Essex, New Jersey. This ordinance will establish a stormwater utility within the township in accordance with Clean Stormwater and Flood Reduction Act, NJSA 40A 26B-1.
This ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. I now open the hearing on this ordinance for anyone in the public who'd like to speak to it or ask questions. Come on up.
Thanks. I was unaware of that order. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I know,
Uh,
Mr. DeLuca's got a lot of
Thanks.
experience
Thanks,
in this regard.
Mr. DeLuca. Good evening, Virginia Lamb, 3 Winthrop Place. I just want to say that I support the creation of the ordinance and the utility, and I commend you all for recognizing that it's necessary. I have a few points and questions on some of the specific items, and then some sort of bigger picture comments I wanted to make. So starting with specifics on section 3 definitions, item 8, I know it's second hearing and all, but I just feel like the addition of artificial turf is appropriate for the list of impermeable surfaces. As I only found out this past few months, artificial turf is specifically designed to collect stormwater and discharge it to sewage systems. There's zero chance of artificial turf rainwater going down into the groundwater again. So it's technically defined as an impermeable surface. And then in that same section, so it's item 8, I'm wondering why gravel and crushed stone are considered impervious surfaces. Under section 11, the adjustment section, which is about the credit manual, I was just curious about the process and the timeline of creation for that, and what resources might be enlisted in its development. I mean, as you, I'm sure, know, there's a lot of great resources, the Rutgers Water Resources Program. There are cities that have been really pioneering with stormwater management, like Chicago and Philadelphia, that could provide us some great resources and maybe save some time. And in addition, there are members of SOMA Action Climate who have indicated an interest in helping with that process, if that's valuable. In addition, under adjustments, I feel like it should include elements like green roofs and permeable asphalt, not just swales and rain gardens, which were the 2 items that I saw mentioned. And then conversely, I'm thinking, what about houses that still, I believe it's illegal, but they still pump water from their sump pump out into the street,
yeah.
right? And then also gutters. My house, when I moved in, we had downspouts that went underground out to the street, and we disconnected those. So I think that needs to be addressed. And then lastly, on the sort of under the big picture point, is the topic of stormwater prevention. Like, we don't really have to wait until the water escapes, right? We have a tremendous opportunity to keep it in place just by taking better care of our soils. And Deborah and I had met a couple of weeks ago, and I have a couple of, I don't know what the protocol is here. I had some pictures from Memorial Park. Out, but you can see how severely eroded the soils are. It's a steep slope on the hill there, and you can, during Ida, when the library flooded, like, all that water came down the park, right? So if we really gave a little thought to managing our soils better, soils high in organic matter can hold several times their weight in water. So they would store millions of gallons of stormwater. And many, like I said, many of our soils are really compacted, really highly eroded, very severely degraded and neglected, which makes them really not only inert, but they're really carried off by wind and water. So they make for air pollution, they make for water pollution, and this has many consequences, including for the health and safety of our many mature trees that are in the park that are really, really struggling and suffering. So, so big climate implications. And since degraded soils release carbon to the atmosphere, while productive, healthy soils draw down carbon from the atmosphere. So this really makes every inch of bare soil a missed opportunity. So I'm a soil scientist. I forgot to mention. So the township can adopt policies to do really simple things like mulching. We did a bunch of mulching in the park this summer. Public Works was great. Adding compost and planting ground covers, as well as just being mindful of compensating for additional impervious surfaces that are created. Like the walkway in the park, I love it. It's great, but it's an additional impervious surface. So
Right.
how are we going to offset that? As we all know, climate change is here. Heavy rains are only going to increase. So I just encourage the township to use this ordinance as an opportunity to really innovate on the subject of stormwater minimization and management.
I'd love to call on you for our engineer to talk to you about the process for remediating some of the compacted soil. I know we did recently talk about it at the Conservancy, especially around the white ash, where we need
Yes.
to cover those roots and try to give some more protection and nourishment for those. So
Right.
I obviously don't want to get into
Yeah, all the
weeds
details of that. Yes,
or
yes.
the soil here, but I know we've called on you before, so can we?
Yeah, absolutely,
Because I
absolutely.
think that's
I'd love
I
to.
don't think that's anything I remember discussing. I didn't realize that the compaction of the soil, I knew that it, helped with the runoff, but I didn't
Mhm.
know that soil itself could literally be
A carbon source.
a retention center.
Yeah, living soil, because there's more organisms in the soil. They all hold carbon, more roots in the soil,
Yeah.
everything. It's like creating this whole below ground ecosystem.
Mhm.
And then the water storage, nutrient cycling, carbon storage, it all follows.
Yeah,
And then everything functions better.
yeah.
So
I
it's
think that's-
really kind of
that's really
amazing.
great. So, Mr. DeLuca, you'll make sure Mr. Kidner is aware of that, so they can work together on remediation of stuff. Did anyone want to respond, or did you want to answer any of Ms. Lamb's?
Yeah, I was just
Question.
looking up something. So, I think, I hear you on the artificial turf. I would recommend that we not tackle that. That might be an issue, but I don't want to relitigate the artificial turf for the stormwater utility. So
I understand that it's a hot button issue, but
Right.
you should all be aware that it certainly
Yes.
counts.
Yeah,
Right.
we understand that. If it comes up again, I'm sure that will be the debate, one of the debate points.
Okay.
On the gravel and crushed stone, I think that's just standard, because it compacts, the same thing you're talking about.
Mhm.
Same thing with water in a pool. It's counted as impervious surface.
Mm.
So it's just the compacting and the gravel, so they don't count that. And we've been working with, so the way this got started is in 2022, we made an application to the DEP for technical assistance.
Mhm.
And they selected us and a number of other towns, and then they hired a firm, and the firm we worked with is named Arcadis. And it's a national, maybe international firm. And they're very experienced working in other states, because we don't have anything here except for one city, and that's New Brunswick, which is this year, and will be the second if this passes. So Arcadis has been working with us since January, and they're very good, and they'll be working with us in the new year, and they've provided us with all the information, but we'll certainly reach out to you and get more information. The suggestion of working with, Soma Action, Soma Action Climate, we can certainly take a look at that. I did want to talk about the green roof. So the definition on the credit policy, and the credit policy is still being worked on. So that is coming up for another ordinance in the beginning of 2025. And all that will be in place before we start billing, which will be somewhere, it will go out with the sewer utility bill, the sanitary sewer bill. So that's generally March or April, we send that out, so.
May.
Yeah, May.
May.
March or April or May.
Or
That's when
June.
we send that out. So we have some time. We'll be working all that. And we're doing a lot of community education in the interim. But the credit policy talks about green infrastructure being any measure rather, that captures, filters, absorbs, or reuses stormwater. So a green roof, I think, would fit into that category.
And what about sump pumps? We
So
did.
the sub pump is already accounted for because the house is impervious.
Mhm.
So the water, whether the water runs,
Oh.
out the sub pump out to the street, or if even if it runs into the ground, it's still going to be counted as impervious surface.
Oh, I see. Okay. Is it legal, though, to divert some pump
Well, that's a whole nother matter.
out?
Well, we do have an ordinance that we passed a few years ago about it for new construction,
Mhm.
and then also where it is impacting public streets or public property. Our engineer has contacted owners to see if we can, because some of them were long before somebody bought the house.
Right.
So trying to work on mutually
Agreeable.
agreeable and not, we don't want to impact residents who kind of inherited this situation too much financially, but also we don't want to have to keep paving the same road over and over again because the sump pump, so there are areas DPW is aware of, and we isolate them and kind of work with the property owner privately, but
Nice.
new construction is definite no-no.
Yeah, and in the cold weather, it gets like I
Mhm.
run, so it puts ice out far in the street, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have in the ordinance, we have, if it's a safety issue, we can force them to divert the water. When we do road projects that include drainage, we do tie in those sub pumps or gutters into the drainage system.
Nice.
And so that's one thing is to, we want to get as much water off the road. And for the sub pump issue, get as much water off the road for the very thing you're talking about, freezing. But for stormwater purposes, it's really, the way this worked is the state has an aerial view of every municipality, and that's how we determine, or that's how they determine the impervious, amount of impervious surface on each piece of property. And that's what we'll be using. And to the degree that we can get people to take measures that reduce their impervious surface, green roofs, swales, rain barrels, things like that, then, we'll be promoting that also.
Great.
I don't think our.
Well, you've obviously all thought this through, so thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for your
Ms. Lamb.
time. Have a good night.
Thank you. Come on up, Craig. Does our sump pump ordinance address gutters? I don't
I don't
think
think
so.
so.
Can you make a note, take a look at that? Whether we need to, because when we talked about it, the sump pumps going into the street, we didn't think about gutters, I don't think.
We did
Some pumps into this, yeah, I'll have to take a look at the ordinance.
We did talk about.
Usually you don't have as much of an issue with gutters into the street because if it's raining. it's
Correct,
not
but to
freezing.
the extent that we do, I mean, just something I want to make.
I can let you know what's in there, yeah.
Hi. Would you tell us who you are and where you live and ask your questions?
Thank you. Craig Miller, 502 Prospect Street. I don't have any sound effects or slides. So think of last Wednesday
Last
during that
Wednesday.
torrential downpour.
Oh, I don't remember this.
Now, I know this has been going on for many years, and I applaud the Township Committee's forward thinking on stormwater management issues. What I'm going to focus on is the unique aspects of this ordinance, which is having Maplewood establish, quote, a utility, which is, I'm distinguishing from stormwater management. All the issues you raised, I 100% agree with. Stormwater management is important, and with climate change, volatility of storms is going to increase. And I think most people in our town recognize that. So dealing with this increasingly pressing issue is very much on the agenda. But the question of this ordinance is setting up a new mechanism to address it. The ordinance in the press release that we read in Village Patch well explained the issues and the benefits of the proposed stormwater utility. The two key benefits of the utility are a dedicated source of funding for the long-term CapEx of stormwater infrastructure, such as culverts, grates, pipes, other types of infrastructure. What does dedicated mean in reality? Dedicated means that the money will be available in a specific bank account, you might call it a lockbox, that's less susceptible to the township committee using available funds each year for other seemingly more pressing or purposes that seem more desirable at the time. So the ordinance doesn't change what's being done. It's a financing governance mechanism. It's a fundraising mechanism. It's a governance mechanism. I think we do understand that stormwater infrastructure is literally mostly invisible in our town. It's below the surface of the streets. And historically, Maplewood has probably underinvested in stormwater infrastructure like many towns. Other projects are more interesting, more pressing, and long-term infrastructure could always be delayed, diminished when there's other more pressing budgetary issues. The other key benefit of utility is changing who pays for addressing this issue. The stormwater utility in the statute that you're acting under allows the town to charge fees that are based on impervious surfaces rather than just general real estate taxes and general fees such as sewer fees. So a property that obviously has more impervious surfaces will pay more. And as we've discussed, this may nudge property owners to install better stormwater management features. Having utility isn't the only way that could happen. Education could do that also. But here's the key point. A stormwater utility is not itself an engineering or an environmental solution. And it's not inherently green in the sense of solving any climate-related problem, which is of existential concern. So let's keep this in perspective. This is, and is only is, a financing and governance mechanism. You know, we are a municipality, that's what we're doing. We haven't come up with new technology. We haven't come up with new engineering. It's not inherently better than the township continuing stormwater management and implementing without a utility all the ideas to improve stormwater management. I think the only aspect of this that would be feasible with utility that's not otherwise feasible is charging property owners on a differential basis and creating a additional revenue stream for the township to address the issue. But the technological and engineering issues could all be addressed without a utility. So like most other financing and governance mechanisms, as I look at it, the question is it worth the complexity and the incremental cost of doing it? Its desirability depends on the accompanying cost. If it costs too much to do it, perhaps the cost outweigh the benefits of this utility which we've explored before. So the key question is, what is the incremental cost of this utility to Maplewood versus continuation of stormwater management within the municipality? If the new overhead and admin costs are too high, it may not be worth doing. Examples of such incremental costs include two types of costs. One, setup costs, which include feasibility studies and assessment of each land and plot on a new basis. And two, the ongoing incremental costs, if any, such as separate personnel, external consultants, annual required reports to the state, assessment costs, separate accounting, legal review, et cetera. On the other hand, much of the engineering work is the same that the township would otherwise be doing. So one can envision much of the budget of a utility offsetting or replacing part of what would otherwise be in the budget of the township so that it doesn't lead to duplicative costs. One clear example of a unique incremental cost of this utility is that the Maplewood stormwater utility will be required to pay to the state of New Jersey 5% of the revenues of the utility, capped at $50,000 a year. And that's a recurring fee to the state under the statute. It's required by statute. Under the estimated 900,000 first year revenue, this is about $45,000 to the state, and that'll be recurring, increasing up to the 50 grand each year. So I have a few general questions, and I have discussed this with one current member of Township Committee ahead of this meeting, and before we answer, but I thought this was an aspect of the proposal that was not really reported on publicly. And since township residents, our neighbors, are concerned about the fiscal prudence of what we're all doing here, it's worth a few minutes to address these issues. And it's also worth discussing it publicly, not just with the one or two or three people who might have asked the questions, so that our neighbors, our voters can understand what to think of
Okay.
Township Committee.
So go ahead with the questions that you had.
So, two questions, and then what is the value to the state? What value is the state providing for the 5% of revenue each year that it's going to get? What are the incremental costs of the utility, which need to be paid by fees from residential and commercial property owners? How will the township mitigate these incremental costs? Kind of in a big picture, as Vic mentioned, the statute was adopted in 2019. And in the entire state of New Jersey, only New Brunswick has moved forward with this. Many other towns have considered it, but only New Brunswick has adopted it. And so there have been op-ed pieces written by people such as Jeff Titel, the former director of the New Jersey Sierra Club, who raised these exact questions. He helped inform my interest in this, and these were the questions. He was concerned that it would result in bureaucracies rather than solutions. So the big picture question is, why is the Township Committee confident that it's desirable for Maplewood to be an early adopter when many other towns have not chosen to move forward on this? I think after we address that, I do have a couple of specific suggestions on the ordinance, one of which is the same question as was raised before.
Okay.
But I'll stop at this.
All right,
Thank you.
yeah, let us respond to a lot of what you're saying. I'm going to ask Mr. DeLuca to respond to some of the specifics. I think, and my colleagues can correct me if I'm misrepresenting, but my understanding of our collective desire to do this is separate and apart from the fact that we'll be the second municipality. I think 2019 is a little misrepresentative, if you will, because then we went into COVID, so nobody was really thinking about dealing with stormwater utility. We did, however, talk about it at Engineering Public Works several years ago about trying to get a dedicated fund, and that's what dedicated at least means to me, a dedicated funding source that can't otherwise be taken away from a future town governing body, a future township committee to fund other capital projects, which to me is a really important part of this, much like the Open Space Trust Fund, right? So, and that's in my mind, and I think that's what we all kind of agreed on, that we want to address this issue. We struggle every year with our, budget and with trying not to raise taxes too much and yada, yada, yada. And we want to make sure that we're addressing the infrastructure that is 100 years old or more and trying to make sure that we're doing what we can. And to the specific questions with regard to the percentage to the state, Mr. DeLuca is more informed on this than I am, so I'd ask you to address it.
Yeah, I mean, on the percentage to the state, we have no choice.
Right.
Legislation says you have to give 5% or $50,000, whichever is more, whichever is less, rather. So that's, and what we're going to get for that, I'm not sure, because we're still learning how they're.
Is the state providing any assistance in getting this started?
Yeah, I mentioned to the previous speaker that the township got a grant of technical assistance that the state paid for. So the township has paid no money to do the feasibility study for drafting the ordinances. So that's all being paid for by DEP. So that's that. As far as the incremental costs, we are assigning the current executive engineer as the director of the utility. So that's going to be his job is going to be that. There may be some incremental costs that we have with billing and finance, but we're trying to keep all that down to a minimum. As I mentioned earlier, the bills will go out in a normal course of the year as be a separate item on the sanitary sewer bill. We are not, as a local government, we're not able to charge fees for stormwater. This is enabling legislation. So without this legislation, we couldn't do this. So with all due respect to Jeff Tittle at the Sierra Club, he doesn't run local governments. He kind of stands on the outside and criticizes them, and that's fine. But we're trying to manage our stormwater. And I would say that I think on the face of it, it may not appear to be, you mentioned environmental or green, but I think it is management. And to the degree that we're making it, preventing flooding from happening to people's homes and properties, any kind of dangerous situation, and to the point that we can use these fees as incentive to reduce impervious surface, then I think that's all a green positive. So I think the positives far outweigh any concerns about that Mr. Tittle might have raised years ago when this came out. And I understand what he was talking about, because some of these towns may, talk about shifting costs over to this utility. That happens a lot in government. I spoke Friday at a conference down in Trenton and said the very same thing, is that, we at the local level have to be, we're creating a compact with our residents to charge a new fee, to bring in new money, to do projects that aren't going to get done, quite honestly, through the typical budget process, because the infrastructure work for stormwater is below the ground. People don't see it. Mm-hmm. They feel it when there's rain now more. How many people have said, boy, we never had flooding before, but we have it now. And that's because our system is overtaxed and we can't get the water off. So we are clearly going to be using this money to do projects that we may have had on the books for a long time and haven't been able to get to, but we're going to get to them now because we have a stable source of dollars. So I think the benefits far outweigh any concerns that might come up.
I would just add to that, you mentioned the studies to do, to analyze our system or whatever. We are doing that now in the regular course for our sewer infrastructure by, what if we've TV'd about half of it? Not even, yeah, half, right?
Sanitary sewer.
Right, the sanitary sewers. So that's just prudent, like we need to know where the problems are so we can fix them. So I don't think that's over and above, and that's something we might do even without a stormwater utility for the stormwater system that we have to address the issue with. So I agree with Mr. DeLuca that I think the benefits do outweigh the negatives to it, but
Can I add something, Mayor? Both you and Ms. Lamb talked about preventative measures, and this is a financial mechanism, but I think it allows us to have the conversation about what we as just regular citizens can do to help with climate change and help with stormwater management. So like, I'm really excited about the credit policy. I'm disappointed that we don't have it ready because I thought maybe we were going to be able to read it before today and it would be passed at the same time, because I think that allows us to take these technical terms and lay the groundwork for what we can actually do in our own homes in order to help with stormwater management. Because the more that we as a population start working to prevent and to make changes, the less problems we're going to have to fix, I think. And I think that we don't talk about prevention enough. And so I hope that passing this and having a credit policy and breaking it down into a consumer-friendly communications plan will allow us to hit on some of the preventative measures that the regular old people can do, not just the governing body by passing these kind of laws.
does anyone else want to respond before us?
So thank you. On balance, I do support proceeding with this, and I applaud the forward-looking effort and the honesty of the Township Committee in recognizing the difficulties of addressing an issue that requires long-term capital expenditures in light of the year-to-year budget vicissitudes. I view setting this up as analogous to funding of sewers, the sanitary sewers, which are a separate fee. And we have a separate water system for which individual property owners pay to have a separate system, allowing it to be managed on a long-term basis. And as Ms. Engel said, to prevent the sort of catastrophes that Maplewood has experienced. A few years ago, the catastrophe in Maplewood Village of the flooding, the fatality up near Wyoming. I applaud the efforts to look forward and prevent that. And I applaud the honesty of recognizing that it does require a little discipline in advance of raising modest amounts of money and not ignoring it. So on balance, I support it. I just wanted to bring a full dialogue. I do have a few suggestions for implementation. I think before you actually go live with sending out bills, et cetera, you ought to have in hand budgets for the next 3 years, a live budget for this year, estimated budgets for the 2 subsequent years. I think people in town have learned from the Board of Ed that the absence of multi-year budgeting leads to unexpected disappointment. Let's avoid that unexpected disappointment on a new initiative. It has opportunities. Let's make sure we actually look over the horizon before we start sending out bills and getting this machine started. Number 2, a small point, the proposed ordinance allows residents only 30 days from the assessment to challenge the amount. I recognize that the stormwater fee will be much, much smaller than property taxes, but I suggest allowing 90 days to challenge the assessment. This is a new regime. It's not tried and true. There's very few people doing it in New Jersey. We shouldn't be jamming our residents with the first time. There'll be glitches. There'll be a learning curve. I think due process requires more than jamming people 30 days. And third and last, I agree with the comment that gravel and crushed stone of various sorts, I think is, different people have different views, but many of us don't view that as impervious. And indeed, some of our neighbors put that down to avoid putting asphalt or concrete because they think it is pervious, that it does allow seepage. I'm not an engineer on that, but I think that's worth reviewing.
Yeah, I think to Ms. Engel's point, this
Yes.
would serve to educate, right? That it does get compacted and it may seem like you're doing a pervious when you're really doing impervious. So
Fair enough. So thank you for listening to me. And I
Appreciate it, Craig.
applaud the long-term effort. Good luck.
thank you. Thanks for all your insight and all your comments and questions. And thanks for keeping us honest. I would like to ask my colleagues about the 90 days versus 30 days to challenge it. Is that something that we see value in for 30? Yeah,
And he makes a valid point, is the first one out. So
Yeah.
people may
Right.
not realize it's there until they're ready to pay and they're like, what's this?
Yeah, so we can't change this. Let's just be honest. We can't, because if we don't pass this tonight, then we have to start all over again in January.
Okay.
So that's a substantive change.
So this
That's
would
just the
be-
reality. If we
That's
want
why I
to
was
change it in the
looking at-
future,
she's
we can
making the
change it in the
same face.
future, but
Yeah.
okay.
we can't change it tonight. So if
No.
we either have to vote the way it is, or we have to,
Vote
so we
again
can
and
amend
start
it
over.
things. So,
Okay.
so, you know, I actually don't agree with the 90 days, but because I think we're going to spend time in the first quarter of 2025 talking to some of the big fee, and my sense is the people who are going to appeal the most are the big fee payers.
Right.
Somebody paying, you know, $35 or $70 is probably not going to even see it. They're not going to recognize it on their bill. But somebody's going to pay $1,000 or more is going to say to us, well, what's going on? So we're going to meet with those folks and explain what's going on. And they're going to know that well in advance of the May bill. So when that May bill comes, they're going to have 30 days to challenge it. And then we have 30 days to respond. So there is some time period there to go back and forth between the applicant and ourselves.
Will the fees for each property be listed on a website so that homeowners can see that their property is being assessed comparable to their neighbors, so to speak? So
I
people-
don't know if we decided that. I don't know. We'd have to talk about that. I don't know. We'd have to figure out if we can even do that. I know we can do that for the tax purposes because it's based on the value of the house.
Right.
Um,
It's something.
I
we can
guess,
look
you know,
at.
we do have a
Because I think as a practical matter,
Yeah.
these are pretty small dollars as for 95% of the households.
Right.
And if people know that they're paying more or less the same as all their neighbors, they'll look at it and say, that's fine. But if they don't, it will raise questions. So I'll leave that with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room? I don't think so.
I just want to,
Oh, sorry.
I want to follow up on the proposed 90 days. So we can't
No.
move forward with any amendment tonight.
That would require carrying to a future reading. An ordinance can't cross January.
Right.
Would require us to start over with reintroduction of the ordinance as amended in January.
So it would be like February before anything happens.
So it'd be the second meeting in January,
And then if
And
we're
then
trying to implement
passage
it
in February.
and send it out with the bills and get it all started and done.
I mean, I am concerned that 30 days is short. I mean, I appreciate what committee member DeLuca said about getting to the people who are going to be the largest, those folks who have properties that are going to be assessed at the higher range ahead of time. But I'm concerned. This is a big change. This is a big change. It's an important change. There's a great value in it. We're all for it. But I think 30 days is a short period of time. So
I have a follow-up question about the legal process of it. So like, let's say we pass this as is with the 30 days, but then if we want to in January, change it to a 90-day review, would that just be
Sure, you could.
an amendment to the ordinance, 2 meetings, whatever?
Mhm.
Do any other ordinance.
Right.
Just take that section and change 30 to 90.
okay.
We can also get information about this ordinance out. We've already talked about it, but I think it's something that we can highlight in our communications with our public information officer to get it out. I'm in favor of moving forward. I think while it says so in 30 days in the ordinance, I think in practice, if somebody, 29 days in, we have leeway or, our staff can work with them and we're not going to slam anybody and say you can't talk to us about it because it says 30 days. I'm just saying. I think in practicality, we are a pretty good customer service township and we'll work with our residents, but I agree with Mr. DeLuca that it's, and Mr. Miller, that it's a small amount for almost all residents, whereas the real issue is mostly the commercial or the larger properties.
Right, but just to be devil's advocate for a minute, in my experience, and this is no fault of anybody's because we're all volunteers and we work a lot, right? And we have 2 and 3 and 4 jobs in some instances. But, in my experience, we don't get this information out in time and we don't communicate. This is a big change for the township. It's a major thing. And we didn't get it out there to have more fulsome participation tonight and to have more questions. And I know part of that is people don't really pay attention until they get a bill that says, hey, you're paying for stormwater, then suddenly they're engaged. But just from past practice, I think we need to be a little bit more practical. That's all. I want to move forward tonight. I'm going to vote to move forward, but I do think this is something that we should think about.
Yeah, and we.
No, wait, I'm just gonna, I actually agree, Mr. Davis. We've talked about it a lot in committee and here, but we haven't talked about it with the public. And we even talked about getting information about this public hearing happening today, which I didn't see anything on social media. So I don't know if anything went out on a newsletter, but so I agree with Mr. Davis that, and you, Ms. Mayor, that we do need to have an education campaign around this, which I thought was also going to include the credit policy and do it all together. I agree that we should pass it today. I agree that maybe we should look at 30 days versus 60 days versus 90 days and talk through that piece to maybe amend the ordinance in January. And we have talked about it a lot amongst us, and I think we're all really supportive of it. But I agree with you, Mr. Duffus, that we don't necessarily do a great job talking to the public about these kind of.
Is there any way of pulling it out? Because I disagree. We've actually had a ton of stuff about stormwater utility, but it's been in that very long message that we send out midweek. It's been a part of that. Because I get emails on the daily from people in the community. They're like, what? We have a new tax? They see it, but it's because they've had 5 extra minutes to read through that entire thing. So it's been out there, but it's been hard to find. So I would suggest for future things for us to have maybe an individual one, like this is the stormwater.
I think it's worth it, and we talked about doing that. So I think we just need to make sure we're doing that because we do have the new bill going out in May. So we have time to make that known. And so, I think we need to get the information out separate and standalone. We can have a public meeting on it if we decide that's what we want to do. Maybe comms committee can talk about that and we can facilitate something like we do with redevelopment projects. Okay? All right. So is there anyone online who would like to speak to this ordinance before I close the hearing?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak on this ordinance, please raise your hand now. I see no hands, Mayor.
Says with a smile. Okay. Then I will ask for a motion.
I move this ordinance be adopted as a whole and the clerk be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance in the Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second. Fritzen?
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Daffis,
Yes.
Mr. DeLuca.
Yes.
Single.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes, good discussion, everyone. I think it was important. Thank you. And thanks for the public comment in here. We'll move on to administrative reports. Mr. Wary.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item. We've talked about communication of the public a few times tonight, and I'm happy to report that we have a new public information officer, Cindy Price, who is being appointed on tonight's meeting. She is a Maplewood resident, has a lot of experience in writing for the public, and we're excited to bring her on. She will begin in early January.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wary from my colleagues? Moving on, Ms. Credidio, Township Attorney, do you have a report this evening?
Brief report, Mayor. As we discussed at our prior meeting, we have the impending closure, at least the print edition, of the Star Ledger. There
Mhm.
are a couple of competing bills pending in the legislature. One of them advanced today, which would provide a stopgap measure allowing municipalities that are using the Star Ledger or other newspapers that are currently printed that are changing to an online format to continue to use them up until March 1st of 2025, even after they go digital. Unfortunately, that does not address, there are certain municipalities which will not have two newspapers, even that will be digital. So the league is, advocating for a more robust solution to the problem instead of the measures, but it does look like at least something will advance to keep us all in the clear until beginning of March.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Credidio? All right, then we'll move on to our clerk, Ms. Fritzen.
Just a couple things, Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to report that, we've had shown interest to the county in an early voting location and received notification that our request to host an early voting location is under consideration. And the county will come out and look at the recommendations that we've made and probably have more of a report for you in February. As you all know, there's been some discussion about changing the date of the primary election. And we've actually been holding back our annual meeting notice because it would impact any change that might be made for the June primary. So word is we might know on Thursday, but we'll wait and see if that happens. But again, all the notices that had been sent to our local and the Star Ledger and the press that covers Maplewood, I've pulled them. So hopefully we'll be able to know this week and get everything published. The annual reorganization meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 1st, 5, beginning at 2 p.m. sharp. And that would mean that the township committee members would come at 1:30 for our pre-meeting. But we're working on a great agenda and program for that day, as well as the town business. So that is my report.
Any questions from?
Yes. So just on the June 4th versus June 3rd primary meeting date. So if the primary is being changed because it interferes with the religious holy day, when our meeting interfere with the religious holiday, so why don't we keep it on June 4th? Keep it on the Wednesday. So there's no competition either with our meeting or with the primary on that day.
Good question.
Does the statute say it has to be on the Tuesday?
No, because we have
Oh.
Wednesday
Do
meetings.
you have a response, Ms. Fritzen?
Well, I hadn't thought about that. I mean, that would be certainly your decision. But yeah, I guess we would be interfering with.
Yeah, I think it would be horrible if the primary was changed because it interfered with a religious holiday, a holy day, and then we changed our meeting back to that religious holy day.
Yeah.
So I would keep it at the 4th.
What holiday is it? Oh. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Does the township committee agree with that?
Sure.
Sure. I think it's a good suggestion. It's the right thing to do.
Any other questions for Ms. Fritzen? Okay, then we'll move to elected officials. Committee Member Daffis, you're up.
Thank you. I go first for a change, and I have no report, Mayor. I just want to wish everyone out there happy holidays. However, folks celebrate, and in particular for the new year, I hope that we all experience more peace in the world. There's a lot of conflict out there. More peace in our discourse. We're very divided right now. Peace to our bodies, those who are suffering from healthcare issues, and peace to our minds and hearts. Let's remember that this festive time for some is not a time of merriment for many others, folks suffering with sadness and isolation. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Daffis? Probably not, because you had no report really.
Correct. But I'll take questions.
Okay. Committee Member DeLuca, you're.
Thank you, Mayor. Three things. Today at 4 o'clock, we got an email from DEP that our permit application for Maple Terrace has been approved. We've been waiting for this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And we've all been working in one direction to get this done. So we will be going back to the drawing board and putting up our strategy to get this work underway and timeline and all that. Just want to point out on the consent agenda, 3 resolutions, 2 deal with affordable housing. One is 14A, it's Resolution 384-24. This is an agreement with Ingerman Development Company to develop affordable housing. This is 40 to 48 units of affordable housing. This is part of our request for expressions of interest to develop affordable housing, which we got, responses from over 10 developers, and we went through a process with the Affordable Housing Board and selected Ingerman. So we're moving forward with that. And second, 14C, Resolution 387-24, and this is to appoint Michael Mistrella as our affordable housing planner. In the past, we used community grants and planning, but they're no longer doing that. So we solicited some proposals, professional service proposals, and Mr. Weary and I looked at them, and we agree that Mr. Mistrella will do a terrific job for us. And as we said earlier, this has to move. We have responsibilities to respond in January, and then by mid-year, we have to provide something too. And then the third thing is just another resolution. This is 14I. This is Resolution 396-24. And this is to award a contract to Vanessa Hangen and Bruce Lynn Incorporated. And this is engineering services for DeHart Park Field. And I know we've been talking about DeHart Park for a very long time. This is a $74,000 contract to do that we put out to bid, and our professional staffs feel that this engineering firm is the best for what we're looking for, essentially to remove the topsoil at DeHart and build the underlying soil again. And these folks will be doing the engineering and the specifications and getting us to the point where we can go out to bid for construction. They will be engaging the community in this process, and so we're moving forward with DeHart Park. I know a lot of people had questions about that.
Okay. And
lastly, I just want to thank Jermaine. This is your last meeting. Thank you for your service. As I said earlier in June, I know what it's like to leave not by your choice. But you find other ways to get involved, and I'm sure you will. So thank you for being on the Township Committee and for what you do. And thank you in advance for what you'll do next.
Any questions for Mr. DeLuca? Seeing none, Committee Member Engel.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that we have 2 menorah lightings on December 26th, one at Spiota Park, which we do with our partners in South Orange, and one at Rickleton Square. So you can check out the information from that and come celebrate Hanukkah with us. And then I also wanted to just say to Ms. Kripe, thank you so much for your service and for being up here. And I know we haven't always agreed, and we've had some discussions, but I really believe that we have such a strong friendship and a strong partnership. And I really loved working with you and getting to know you. And I'm excited to just continue that through the years. So thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Engel? Deputy Mayor Craig, you're up.
Yeah. I too have really no report other than little tidbits I'm going to toss in my thank yous. So, yeah, this is my last meeting here, but it won't be the last meeting here. I'll be back for other stuff. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank my husband and my daughter for their love and support in the chaotic and insane decision to run for township committee many years ago. And the people I blame mostly are Vic for being such a great mayor and deputy mayor and just committee person for all those years, to making it seem like this is the right place to be. And years ago, I had enough huevos to actually approach you at a event and say, basically, I'm going to take your job one day. I didn't quite get there yet, but who's to say? That might happen. But thank you for your trust. Thank you for always being there to support me and coming to tell me, even though we don't agree, I support your right to say what you need to say. And that means a lot. So thank you for being a mentor. To the voters of Maplewood who entrusted me with this role, thank you. You know, I never in a million years would have thought a kid from Daytona Beach would have been doing things here in Maplewood. But you gave me a chance, and I appreciate the support, the criticism, the calls to do the right thing, the challenges that have come with being in this role. So thank you for that. To the staff and the personnel here in this town, and some of them know I love them more than others. Yes, I'm biased. I'm
She looked
sorry.
away.
I'm sorry, but pizzas, burgers are a powerful thing. And I want to thank you for always being the professionals that we hired you to be. I tell my husband all the time, I'm like, just like I have at my job, crews of people who are right where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be. And you can tell by just that magic that they make. That's you guys. And as much as anybody wants to come in and raise hell in the township about when they didn't get their tax bill on time or how this is not happening and why my leaves didn't get picked up, in general, this town runs like a machine, as it's supposed to. And it's because of you all and how you've been the consummate professionals that we pay you to be. So thank you for caring that much about us as well as your career trajectory. So please don't leave if you don't have to. We really can't. We're kind of smooth right now. It'd be nice
Yes,
to let that
please.
smoothness stick around for a bit longer. To the members of the Township Committee, all of you have been friends, all of you have been supporters, but one has been more of a friend and supporter than others. I've written you all personal notes because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get through this. So look in your mailboxes on Friday. They'll all be there with your Christmas gifts. But you know how I feel about you. Yeah. And you know I'm going nowhere. Okay. And I will probably show up with a dog. Because George needs somebody to play with. And yeah, so to thank you for all of that you've given me, all that you've supported me with, how you've been not only the sounding board and running mate, but sometimes that person you just want to go, oh my God, will you tell me not to do this again? It's nice. Finally, for the people who volunteer in our community, the ones who are afraid to step forward and the ones who aren't sure they have something to give. Yeah, you do. You do. We don't do what we do here without your support. And there is so much left to be done. And we need people who were looking to forward move this community into a place that helps everyone, all the residents, from the top of the hill all the way down by the park to Hart Park. We want more from our community, and together we can get there, but we got to do it together. And so my final thing to say to you is a quote a friend of mine gave me years ago that was kept in my inbox because I'm like, I'm going to use in the sermon one day, and I just never got to it yet. But I'm going to use it here. I often see that we have a choice between submitting to pain and hurt or following love and hope. I commit and recommit daily to being part of my community. And it's not because it's easy, because it's my home. Thank you for making Maplewood home for me.
That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
I'm not going to make people ask questions of you because it's my turn.
Go for it.
Report. So just a quick thank you to, the Village Alliance and Ellen Davenport for Dickens Village and the tree lighting. And all that was a lot of fun to participate in, and to our Department of Community Services for the town's official tree lighting at the gazebo this past weekend. So I just want to, I appreciate so much, like, you being a sounding board for me as well, and being a confidant. It's a pleasure to serve with someone who has a strong foundation of honesty and integrity. And that means a ton in this little field we have of public service and politics. So I will miss you. I will miss serving with you. And you owe me a double date, sooner than later, that we're talking about. Tell your hubby. But go with the good work you did and the service that you gave and will continue to give, as Mr. DeLuca said, because, you know, it comes from your heart. It always does. And I'm proud to know you, and I'm proud to have run with you and served with you. So we'll miss you very much. So no questions for me, right? Good. Okay. So we'll move on to discussion items. We only have one. One. That's good. For Mr. DeLuca, Raymond Terrace.
Yes, so I sent you a memo on this. So in June, we passed an ordinance which limits parking on Raymond Terrace to 2 hours between 7 a.m. and 5. I misunderstood. I thought automatically they would be eligible, the people on the block would be eligible, because that's what we did on Villa Terrace. When we took a look at the Villa Terrace ordinance, we had specific language in there that made it explicit that they would be eligible to park. So I would just like to start in January amending the ordinance to make it explicit so that the people on Raymond Terrace can have the same benefit that we provided them to Villa Terrace.
Yeah.
Sounds logical.
Fair enough.
Okay, that's it.
That's a short discussion item. and
I try to send stuff out so you guys know.
Yeah.
when-
Yes, I love that.
Okay,
Love that.
All right, we have the consent.
and
agenda.
move the consent agenda.
Second.
I'm sorry, I haven't asked for a
Right.
motion yet.
Yes.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes,
Engel.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes. I already gave him peanut butter balls. Mr. DeLuca, happy birthday.
you ought to think about your comments tonight.
What's that now?
When she said it, everything was like a,
No,
like
no,
for a
no,
second, you're
no,
like,
no.
Butterballs.
they are a baked
Talking
good.
about candy, right?
They're-
No one's ever referred to me like that before.
I said I gave, well, nobody's ever taken it that way before. I don't know where that's coming.
That was his high school nickname.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Happy birthday,
sing you
Mr.
happy
DeLuca.
birthday.
Next
Happy
year-
birthday.
No.
'Cause
Public
I've
comment.
talked more about.
He
you
goes, just get to
than
public
anything
comments.
else.
No.
Maybe someone will say
Anybody in
happy birthday
public
to you in
comment
public
want to
comment.
comment on public?
On any subject.
I think we lost the public. by now.
Public comment for any item that anyone would like to speak to. I see no one in the room.
If any members of the public joining us on Zoom would like to speak in public portion on any item, please raise your hand now.
Including Mr. DeLuca's 74th birthday. We're going to keep talking about it, may as well say. Yep, no
I
problem.
see no hands, Mayor.
Man, missed opportunity.
Okay,
to say
Ms.
happy
Deputy Mayor Kripe, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Kreip.
Yes.
Staffis.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Engel.
Yes.
Mayor Adams.
Yes, happy holidays, everyone. Be
Blessings.
safe and